Good morning. Welcome. Happy new moon. As we gather here, we're just a few minutes past the new moon, which was at 7:53 a.m. Pacific. And today is Friday, August 14th. I'm Emily Trinkus of Virgo Magic and also the High Priestess of the Temple of Venus Revolution. And thanks so much for being with me today, or thanks for being here by recording. And today we are going to talk about this new moon and tomorrow's special Venus-Sun conjunction. So at each new moon, the sun and the moon unite at the same degree of the zodiac. And the ancient idea is that the cosmic father and mother are coming together, making love, and fertilizing a new lunar cycle. So this is a seed planting for the next 29 days, the next month, or month, as I like to say. And this month's new moon is in Leo, and Leo is the sign associated with the heart. Leo is the sign of love. Leo is ruled by the sun, so it's the sign of light and radiance, self-expression, creativity, also courage. And the word courage comes from the French coeur, the word for heart. Leo is also the sign of individuality and uniqueness. So Leo is a lot about the courage to be our true selves and the courage to shine our light. So this is a great new moon for setting intentions and planting seeds and taking a step forward when it comes to shining your light more brightly, increasing your radiance, expressing more of yourself. And so we have all of this light power happening, this infusion of light, and the new moon is forming a square, a 90-degree angle of tension and challenge and friction to Saturn. Saturn is now at the end of Scorpio at 28 degrees of Scorpio. And Saturn is the planet of boundaries and limits and time and structure. So one of the ways that I'm thinking about this new moon and noticing this new moon in its square to Saturn is the question of what boundaries do you need to set so you can shine more brightly, so you can be a better lover to the world. So this period that Saturn has been in Scorpio, which has been since October of 2012, this has been a big time for a lot of purging, letting go, clearing out, and we have one more month of Saturn in Scorpio. Saturn will move into Sagittarius on September 17th. So we've got, this is like the final purge, the final letting go. So what else wants to be released? What else is blocking vitality? What no longer feels authentic to you? What doesn't hold passion and excitement? What feels stagnant? What's dragging you down? What are you holding on to out of fear, but it's blocking that flow of radiance and vitality and light? So this new moon is offering a new beginning in light, a new beginning in increasing your radiance, and might require that something has to go or that something needs to be limited or a boundary needs to be set. Saturn in Scorpio is also a lot about revealing and healing our shadows. And so it's square to the new moon in Leo can bring out some shadow Leo. And one of the Leo shadows is the need for approval, the need for applause. So looking for love and validation outside ourselves. So this new moon is asking, where are we sacrificing vitality and passion because we're seeking other people's approval. So at the same time, so we have this Saturnian kind of reality check around what's working, what's not. Saturn is very useful in terms of showing us very clearly what is it that's blocking that flow of light and that expression of radiance and creativity. And yeah, where do we need to set the limits or the boundaries? And how are we spending our time? And are we spending our time in ways that really increase our light or that deplete us and drag us down? At the same time, the new moon is also forming a harmonious angle, a trine, which is a 120-degree angle to Uranus, which is now in Aries. And Uranus is the planet of liberation, revolution, also experimentation. And so this really brings some helpful support for breaking free from the old patterns and for experimenting, trying something new, innovating. This fuels the fire, Uranus being in Aries, another fire sign. This trine to the new moon is fueling the fire of the Leo new moon and is really calling for us to bring out more of that wild creativity and kind of going for it in terms of taking risks and doing something that feels out of our comfort zone, but kind of exciting. So the scary, exciting step forward. And there's a lot going on with this new moon. The new moon is also happening at the same degree of the zodiac as the conjunction of Venus and Jupiter on July 1st. So let me break that down. So on July 1st, Venus and Jupiter, who are traditionally the lesser and greater benefics, so the planets that were considered the most beneficial by ancient astrologers, Venus and Jupiter came together at 21 degrees of Leo, the same degree of this new moon. So Venus and Jupiter coming together, Jupiter, the principle of expansion and abundance, amplifying Venusian love, sexuality, art, beauty, connection, and all of this happening in Leo, which is the sign of light and fun and festivity, playfulness, celebration, creativity. So this would be a great time to think back to what was going on in your life on or around July 1st, because this new moon is a reactivation of those themes for the entire lunar cycle. Okay, so in that sense, the new moon is a Venusian activation, but it's extra Venusian because the new moon is also closely conjunct to Venus, meaning that as the sun and moon unite, Venus is just a few degrees away. So the new moon is at 21 degrees of Leo and Venus is at 23 degrees of Leo. So very close to this new moon. And Venus has been associated with the divine feminine for thousands of years. So she's the goddess, and she's most often associated with the goddess of love and beauty and eroticism and artistry and fertility. And then there's another side of Venus, which is the warrior. And I'm going to talk about that in a future video, maybe next week when Venus rises as a morning star. So Venus is super strong right now because she is retrograde. And Venus is retrograde since July 25th and until September 5th. And when Venus is retrograde, that's when she's traveling closest to the Earth. So it's like that Venusian divine feminine energy is as close to us as it gets. And tomorrow, August 15th, will be Venus's exact perigee, the point when she is closest to the Earth. So the new moon happening very close to Venus and just before Venus's perigee, this big activation of Venusian energies. And Venus in Leo, the sign ruled by the sun, and also Venus traveling close to the sun, one of the archetypes we can think of here is the solar feminine. So the sun, the light of consciousness, infusing the body, Venus, the feminine. So we're being asked to receive and embody and radiate more light. And this is, I was doing this in meditation earlier this morning, just opening up, and it's not sunny here yet today, but imagining that I was sitting in the sun and opening up to that light and bringing more light into my body and then radiating that light, making my own light bigger. So receiving and radiating. And a key to this process is opening the heart. And we can think of the heart as like the sun of the body. So there's all this great research going on about the heart, what the heart is really all about. And it's been found that the heart has a stronger electromagnetic frequency than any other part of the body. So we really radiate a lot of energy from our hearts. And this new moon in Leo is really wanting to activate that heart energy, that love, that light that comes from within us, and also, again, to open us up to receiving more of that light through us. So this very Venusian new moon, and at the same time, the new moon is serving as an activation of Venus retrograde. So in other words, we're in this period of Venus retrograde for about 5 weeks, since July 25th, ending on September 5th. And this new moon is like a catalyst or a punctuation point in that period. I know many of you were present for my Venus retrograde teleclass, Reawaken Your Lioness, and I spent 2 hours giving a big download about Venus retrograde and also how to find where it's happening in your chart and what that means. And the recording is available. If you haven't heard it, I recommend it. And so I just want to say a little bit about it here, that one of the big themes of this Venus retrograde, which is happening mostly in Leo, is about regenerating your fire, right? Leo is a fire sign. Regenerating your fire, your vitality, your passion, your creativity, your life force. And when a planet is retrograde, it pulls the energy inward. So with Venus retrograde, the idea is that in order to regenerate the fire, we have to go really deep inside ourselves. And that might look like pulling back from relationships. There tend to be a lot of relationship issues or relation shit, as a friend of mine said, that gets stirred up during Venus retrograde. And I think part of that is because we do need more time with ourselves, really resetting our relationship with ourselves. So less socializing, maybe taking in less external input. I know for myself, I just haven't been able to read newsletters or listen to podcasts or any, I just can't take in anything else. I just want to tune into what's true inside, So reducing the external activity and noise and input so we can really drop in and discover what's true inside, and so we can get that rest and regeneration time and reflection on what do I need? What do I truly need to relight my fire? And so that retrograde energy turning us inward, and also retrograde Venus tends to really stir up the past. And with Venus, we're talking about old wounds resurfacing that have to do with love and worthiness. And ultimately with Venus, we're talking about self-love and self-worth. And so during Venus retrograde, we might feel like we're not getting the love and appreciation and validation that we want from outside of ourselves. And that's really a clue that it's time to give that to ourselves and to tune into the places where maybe we didn't get all the love that we wanted or that we felt we deserved, and how are we giving that to ourselves. And with Venus in Leo, one of the Leo archetypes is the child. And so this can really stir up that child place in us that maybe didn't get showered with love and appreciation and approval. You know, Leo wants to be loved just for being myself, just for being exactly who I am. And probably very few of us got the perfect dose of that unconditional love as kids. And so we get to do that for ourselves. And Venus retrograde is a great time to heal those wounds and to cultivate our love. Sorry, I had to pick up my little lion who was trying desperately to get up onto the couch. So I had to help her out. Okay. So all of these themes around the old wounds getting stirred up, how loved do I feel, how much love and approval and appreciation and validation do I give to myself, these themes get especially stirred up while Venus is in the underworld, which is where she is now. And Venus in the underworld means that she's traveling so close to the sun that she's invisible. So Venus is visible sometimes as an evening star, sometimes as a morning star, and then she goes through these underworld periods. And we've been in the Venusian underworld since August 9th-ish. And it depends on where you live and what the sky is like, you know, so, but as to when exactly Venus drops below the horizon line and is no longer visible, but around August 9th and until about August 22nd. And so the underworld period where we are now, this is a time to really go deep within ourselves and to feel the old wounds, feel the truth of who we are now, and forgive the past, to really shed those old, what are we holding on to that's really not serving us? What are the old grudges and resentments and pain and whatever that just needs to be shed? The underworld phase is a lot about stripping away what is covering up our true light and our true power. So I want to give you another reference point when Venus was last in the underworld. So Venus has two different underworld periods, and one of them is a long one. One of them lasts for about 60 days. And the last time that happened was from September 16th to December 4th of 2014. That was her long underworld. And I know for myself, that was a super intense period. And it wasn't just me. I know a lot of people were going through a really hard time then. But that's the extended version of the underworld. And that's the underworld period that's associated with Inanna, the goddess whose story, whose mythology is very closely tied in with the cycle of Venus, the ancient Sumerian goddess Inanna. That underworld period is the one that's associated with Inanna being killed and hanging on meat hooks in the underworld and being stuck there until she's eventually rescued. And so the current underworld period is much shorter, again, from about August 9th to August 22nd. So I think less intense. We're maybe hanging on the meat hooks, but just for a couple of days this time. But this period might be stirring up whatever was happening during that previous underworld period. So a kind of reactivation of those themes. So you want to look back at what was happening for you last fall, winter. And this could also be about bringing a sense of closure or completion or healing to what was happening then. So what's happening during this underworld period is that this is when Venus closes one cycle and begins a new one. So what's happening is that we're closing out the Venus cycle. This is a 584-day cycle. This is her synodic cycle, how she appears in the sky. So we're closing out this cycle that started on January 17th of 2014. And then we're starting the new cycle. And so Adam Gainsbourg, who is a wonderful astrologer and wrote a book called The Light of Venus, which I highly recommend if you're interested in this whole Venus cycle. He calls this period Venus's transmigrational underworld. So as she's shifting from one cycle to the next, and we can also think of this as kind of like a backstage period where Venus is changing the archetype, the feminine archetype that's going to be the presiding deity or the presiding goddess of the new cycle. So we're coming out of a Capricorn cycle because Venus was in Capricorn when the new cycle started about 1.5 years ago. And Capricorn as a feminine archetype is associated with the elder, the wise woman, the crone, the council of 13 grandmothers. So it has a lot to do with taking power in the world in a feminine way. And I think we've seen a lot of examples of women really stepping into more power and really, I think, kind of wrestling with and negotiating what does it look like to take power? What does it look like to run a business? What does it look like to be out in the world in a feminine way? And so that's the cycle we're closing out. This is a great time to reflect on your own journey in relation to the feminine for the past 1.5 years. And then what we're shifting into is a Leo cycle. Venus will be in Leo, will still be in Leo when she rises as a morning star on August 22nd, which is the official start of the new cycle. And so Venus in Leo, the solar feminine, the queen bee, are some of the Venus and Leo archetypes. Also thinking of Venus in Leo as the primal goddess, because Leo is a fire sign. So again, so much about connecting with that core vitality and life force energy. So this new cycle is a very creative cycle and has more of an energy of playfulness and festivity and celebration versus the Capricorn cycle that's closing, which, you know, Capricorn is a more serious sign ruled by Saturn. Okay, so tomorrow, Saturday, August 15th, that's when the Sun and Venus will exactly unite. So we'll be exactly conjunct. And this is like the fertilization of the new Venus cycle. So the seed planting of the Leo cycle that will officially begin, and of course astrologers have different ideas about everything, but different ideas about when the new Venus cycle begins. And some astrologers see that Venus-Sun conjunction as the start of the new cycle And then I really follow the shamanic astrology idea, and shamanic astrology as pioneered by Daniel Jamario. The idea that when Venus reappears as a morning star, her heliacal rise, when she becomes visible again, that's on August 22nd, that marks the beginning of the new cycle. So in other words, that the cycle is really identified by her appearance, by our ability to see her again. So we have that direct experience of connecting with the planets. And so if you are an early riser, or if you want to get up super early on August 22nd and have a good view of the eastern horizon, then you will want to look for Venus just before sunrise, and that's her return. Okay, so and I want to mention that as that Venus-Sun conjunction happens, it's also forming a square to Saturn, Saturn in Scorpio. So as we feel into, as we maybe set intentions for and plant seeds for and have this inner fertilization of the new Leo cycle, how do we want to embody and radiate our light over the next year and a half? Since this is happening in a square to Saturn, there's again that question of what do we need to cut out or purge or let go of, or where do we need to set the boundaries in order to allow for that reinfusion of light. Okay, so I wanted to share that I picked a card for this new moon, and I had it. I had it to show you, and then when I picked up my feline, I don't know where it went. So, but I'll post it on my blog so you can look at it. But it is the card is Transcendence, and it's associated with the goddess of compassion, and also with the violet flame. And again, this is from the 13 Moon Oracle, which is an amazing card deck by Ariel Spilsbury. And I wanted to share a little blurb from her description of the card, or her channeling of the card. So she says, consciously enter into transmutation by utilizing the power of the violet frequency to forgive, bring into unconditional love, and transmute that which you have for any reason separated, held out, or judged in self or other. This may not seem easy when you feel, quote, justified in holding your identified position. And here I want to interject that holding your identified position is also part of the shadow of both Leo and Scorpio, because they're both fixed signs, and a shadow of fixity is getting overly attached. And this is just how it is. Okay. So this may not seem easy when you feel justified in holding your identified position. However, the divine motivation is that literally lifetimes of accumulated contractions, karma, and distortions are being cleansed and cleared as a gift of grace in this flame, should you choose to take the first step of embrace and forgiveness. The most powerful gifting of forgiveness is to the self. In the act of forgiving the, quote, other, the radiance of the self is actually freed. So I love that for this, thinking about this new moon and this Venus retrograde, that as this old shiznit from the past gets stirred up, and we might be holding on to our resentments and justifications and whatever, but as we forgive, that's a step toward increasing our radiance. So she says, evoke the radiance held in release. And that's a great Leo Scorpio integration there. Evoke the radiance held in release. Evoke the evoke the violet frequency. Enter now into this radiant, flowing wholeness that is offered by the divine to release anything that you have not, until this moment, loved into wholeness. So I love that too, love into wholeness. So I feel like that's a really perfectly articulated assignment for this new moon. The forgiveness, the releasing, opening up to more radiance, loving into wholeness. And I just want to mention that if you have a copy of your birth chart and some astro-techno skills, you can get more specific about what this new moon means for you. And so what you want to do is to find the house in your birth chart that contains 21 degrees of Leo. And I just want to share, and so the areas of life that are represented by that house, that's where you're really focused on increasing your light, increasing your radiance, maybe starting some new creative project, maybe taking a risk. Part of Leo is being willing to just jump into the moment. And it might be messy, it's not gonna be exactly as you had it in your head as soon as you start taking action, but it's fire, it's about just jumping in. And so I wanna share an example from my own life, and which relates to doing this video this morning. As I went to write my new moon blog, and I know a lot of you out there have been following my blog for a long time, which just, I'm so grateful. Thank you for your support, and just for being on this journey with me. So as I went to write my new moon blog, I just felt so not energized and so not stoked about it. And I felt like, okay, it felt very like shadow Saturn, like obligation, heavy, I have to do this. And in order to get it done, I knew I would have to heavily caffeinate myself, and it would feel like a lot of work, wah. And so I wanted to experiment, Uranus, by trying something different. And a friend recently reflected to me, a friend who has taken some classes with me, reflected back to me that when I'm speaking, she said she notices a lot more passion than she sees in my writing. And I've really been sitting with that, like, boy, well, I want my writing to be passionate, and I want to share, I want to communicate with the world in a passionate way and in a way that really expresses my fire. And so this new moon is happening in my third house, which is the house of communication. And so instead of kind of forcing myself to write when I really didn't feel like it, I'm experimenting with doing a video. And I also felt like it was important to make it a live event. And even though I know a lot of people couldn't be here at this time, and I wanted to meet at this time right at the new moon, that felt important to me. But I knew that if some people showed up, and so much gratitude to those of you who did show up at this time and who are here live, I so appreciate that, because when I'm speaking live, it brings something out of me. It brings out more of that spontaneity. I have to be right there. I can't sit and edit forever and get all overly Virgo perfectionistic. So that's how this this new moon is showing up for me, and maybe that's helpful in terms of thinking about it in your own chart. And yeah, Bessie is here with me. The kitty has to be present for the Leo new moon. So, all right, so thank you. And I'm just noticing some comments here. Wonderful. Hi everybody. Hello. And I'm sorry I can't. Oh, and people are noticing the cute lion. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and and say my farewells. And I invite you to set your intentions, make your new moon wishes. This can be really simple, like lighting a candle and spending some moments in meditation and just really feeling into where and how does that light want to radiate in your life, what wants to be amplified and activated and expressed through you. And then writing down your intentions. And Jan Spiller, who is one of my astro super heroines, she wrote the book New Moon Astrology, which is a wonderful new moon guide. And she recommends not writing more than 10 wishes for each new moon. So you could play with that, experiment with that. All right, so thank you all so much, and happy new moon, and happy radiance and shining your light.